taking the win. I think Maresca turned that game around, which there's been some criticism about his in-game management, but he got it right. Felt he gave us something a little bit more up top, a bit more of a physical presence. I think Jackson's got to start to learn to use his body a bit more.
I don't think either of the keepers are necessarily the standard that I'm looking for in terms of going to put a serious assault on a Premier League.
Noni, I feel, needs to be taken out. He flatters to deceive at times. Our best player on the right-hand side is Neto.
You just have to take accountability. In that moment, you were far too weak. You're a centre-back. It's criminal.
He could be a future Chelsea captain, but he's got to start showing it.
There's so many players that we keep signing that keep being made redundant almost 6 months later. In top four, you don't have to look at other teams, honestly.
But we all look at Matisse, don't we?
Yeah, we have to. We have to.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Inside Chelsea, the show for Chelsea fans by Chelsea fans. I'm Leonie Carpenter, and today I'm joined by former Chelsea defender Jason Cundy and broadcaster and a lifelong Chelsea fan, Mathis Amougou. Guys, we played West Ham at Stamford Bridge. We won. Can we just say we won?
Yes, it's a relief.
Yes, we can breathe. 3 points. Mathis, let's come to you first.
Yeah.
How are you feeling?
Relieved, very much relieved. Very happy with it because obviously going into that game, not only was it deadline day, so you had a little bit of an eye on the transfers, but also Graham Potter coming back to Stamford Bridge. So it was almost like the Clear Lake cycle, you know, the ex-wife comes into the stadium and you have to hope that your current partner, you know, trumps. And we just about got over the line. So I think that's our second win in the last 3. We obviously had that Man City game in the middle, which was a difficult one. We've got some difficult fixtures coming up, you know, Brighton, Villa away. So we needed that win badly. So I'm just relieved, honestly.
Relieved is the word, and I love the way you told that story. And that was quite beautiful, Matisse. Jason, can you top that story?
I've got an ex-wife, so I'd rather not go there. But no, relief is, I felt we got away with it a little bit, in all honesty. Rode our luck. It was all set up for a disaster because I spoke to a lot of Chelsea fans on the way to Stamford Bridge, and they all had a similar feeling to me that Potter comes back. They actually have improved under him. The second half against Aston Villa last week, I thought they were excellent. Bowen was back, he gets his goal. I thought he was outstanding alongside Cundy. And at 1-0 down, I have to say there was a lack of creativity. We'll go into the game, but I felt without Palmer, there needs to be some creativity elsewhere. And then the substitutions, we'll talk about that in a second. But it was all set up to be a disaster. Taking the win, fortuitously the way the goal went in as well. But sometimes you'll take what you're given. And I think Maresca turned that game around, which there's been some criticism about his in-game management, but he got it right on the night.
Definitely. And to see a game where we're 1-0 down, Matisse, it was quite a change for us this season to be 1-0 down and then come back to win the game.
Yeah.
How important was it to get those 2 goals and also to get back into the top 4 as well?
Yeah, it's massive. It's massive because you look at this team and you look at some of the games we've been looking at over the winter period where the drop-off's been in the second half. Maybe we haven't utilised the bench as much as we've wanted to, or we haven't had enough trust from the bench, from the manager. But this was the complete polar opposite. I thought the first half was very sluggish at times. It was a bit passive. It almost felt like a soccer aid game, I called it at times, because we were just moving the ball so slowly. And for a team that hadn't played since the Saturday before, you just wanted a bit more urgency, a bit more oomph about us. But it was a bit passive. And then obviously you come into that second half and Neto comes on, Guy comes on, and just a bit of injection of pace, a bit of life to the team. And suddenly it looked like we wanted to win. We wanted to be there. And that's obviously credit to the manager because he's the one that was proactive. Been a lot of late subs recently. A lot of late subs, maybe going towards the back end of games. This one, he didn't wait. Maybe it was forced with a little knock, but 52 minutes. They've only just come out for the second half. He's got people on the pitch and he's ready to go.
Yeah, and like I say, top 4 was on the line. How important was it to now get into those top 4 positions again, where we should be?
Yeah, I mean, for as bad as we've been our run since Everton away, we're still in there. We've dropped a lot of points. So I think that goes down to the fact that how well we actually did going into December. Coming out of December, things have changed. January's been it's been a mixed bag. There's no getting away from that. And because the other teams around us drop points, Newcastle dropped points, City dropped points, Villa dropped points. You know, it's so important that we took advantage of that. Forest don't look like they're going anywhere soon. They look like they're staying there. So it looks at the moment 3 of the 4. It may well drop down to 5. We've got to make sure when teams slip up around us, we've got to be there to take advantage, and we have. I mean, to be honest with you, when you think about it, we're 4th. And it doesn't feel like we played well enough to be 4th, but we are. And we've got to keep on going because we're now at that stage of the season where results are becoming more important than performances, although you want both. But last night was a perfect example of get the points. Thank you very much. Let's move on to the FA Cup.
Yeah, definitely. And we touched on it earlier, but substitutions. We saw Maresca make substitutions earlier on than we've seen in recent games. We had Guiu on for Jackson in the 52nd minute. Obviously, Jackson got a bit of a knock in the first half, so we're not sure how he's doing at the moment. Apparently, he's fine. But Guiu coming on, what did you make of him?
Yeah, I'm glad that was the sub because obviously we've seen in recent weeks he's brought in Cuckoos for Jackson. And I think even when he came on against City, he didn't feel like a striker. You know, we've spoken about how he fits in this team and him playing out of position. Maresca's spoken about it publicly. Now we just needed the words to be backed by some actions and say, right, you know he doesn't play up front in Cuckoo. Let's see Guiu go up there. Even though he might be a bit raw, he might be maybe not, ready to take on the pressure. Just give him an opportunity to at least come on for Jackson in games. And I thought he did very well. I think Jackson recently is struggling from a lack of confidence. He doesn't seem to be as involved as he used to be. I don't think we're particularly threatening through the middle of the pitch anymore. We seem to go very wide. Cucurella is making those, lung-busting runs into the box from left back, and we're just getting crosses in and looking for knockdowns. But when Guiu comes on, the one thing I did like about him is he's happy to pin the centre-backs, creates a bit more space in front of him for the players to get on the ball and create something out of nothing. And he's not someone that's maybe looking for loads of touches, but he's just a bit of a presence. So, look, he's 19, he's young. It's obviously his first opportunity to impress maybe against Brighton coming up in the cup game at the weekend, just before the weekend. I'd like to see him maybe start that game and see if he can build some momentum because Jackson, his confidence is really low right now. He's struggling.
Yeah, I think raw's the right word. Because there's plenty of enthusiasm, willing runner, puts himself about, a presence, but raw is the right word. But at 19, you're going to be raw. And I felt he gave us something a little bit more up top, a bit more of a physical presence. I think Jackson's got to start to learn to use his body a bit more. I remember when Didier first came to Chelsea, and it took a while for him to kind of realise what he had under the bonnet. Because that physicality, then you think about the talent and quality he had. He then built on that. I feel like Jackson's got to be a little bit more of a present. Having said that, I think they dealt with us very well. Soucek and Soler, there was a box between two of those and Palmer. And the pair of them were looking over their shoulder. So we couldn't get Palmer, so we had to go wide. But when you go wide, because of the system they played, certainly down our left, we couldn't really penetrate. But then the game opened up once we got the equaliser.
Yeah. And talking about our left-hand side, Neto did come on initially on the left. You're always screaming out for him to be on the right-hand side. We know he plays very well on the right. Talk to me about him coming on. Yeah,
I mean, credit to Maresca because the game needed changing. He made the substitutions with Guiu. That was something that he would have told those players about at half-time. 5-6 minutes into that second half, so it gave us a little bit of something different. I've been crying out for Neto to be on that right-hand side. Noni, I feel, needs to be taken out. He flatters to deceive at times, has a presence, has had some goal involvements, scored the last couple of games. But for me, Neto is our best player on the right-hand side is Neto. But then you might solve one problem, and then you create another, because Sancho up against Wan-Bissaka, there was only one winner there, and because of the system they played, Sancho was never going to beat him on the outside. He's too quick. The physicality of Wan-Bissaka. So he kept coming inside, and that kind of played into what West Ham wanted. Shuffling into Soucek, shuffling into Soler, Irving. They had bodies there. We really struggled in that part. But when the only way we can get around is by outside, and I felt Neto threatened. They made a substitution as well, I didn't even know it was that West Ham, because Emerson was struggling. And you think, right, now we've got Neto, very different proposition.
It's difficult for Maresca because I think in that first half, I actually think Madueke was better than Sancho in terms of he was more of a threat. He had a couple of shots on goal. And then when you look at the shots per game of all of our wingers, Madueke is the one that puts, more of a threat on goal. He's the one that leads in goals in this team as well this season in terms of the wingers. Sancho has only got a couple. Neto now, that's his second goal. We're in February. So I think he wanted a bit of a contrast between Sancho, who's not really taking shots and isn't really much of a goal threat, and Madueke, who does take shots because we know the team out without Palmer and Jackson's in poor form. There's not enough goal threat. But then, obviously, whilst he's following in the shot against Wolves for taking Chalobah, and I was fine with that, whilst he's getting the goal against City, he's not tracking the run for Vardy. He wasn't tracking Emerson as much as he needs to, and Neto gives you that. So he's got a problem where he's got Neto, who's maybe more reliable on the concentration defensively, but he doesn't take enough shots. Madueke is more of a threat, really good ball carrier into the box, good dribbler, gets you into dangerous positions for the cutbacks, but inconsistent as well, and it's tough because I don't think any of the wingers are really playing to the level we've needed them to play to this season, and you can make a case, in my opinion, that the youngest one in Madueke has actually put up definitely statistically more than the others, and I can see why the manager tussles between the two. I don't think it's cut and dry, to be honest. It's tough.
With those stats that you've just mentioned, Matisse, with Madueke, why do you think, in your opinion, Jason, that you don't favour him? Because he is involved in the games. We have seen him get goals and assists. He is a threat. What is it that's missing, do you think?
Well, I mean, great point that Matisse makes about tracking back.
Yeah.
Noni switches off. There was one run first half where I watched him run from the edge of our box to the edge of their box. Emerson's out wide. The ball never came in eventually, but there needs to be more. I mean, look, Noni, if Pedro Neto's not available or injured, Noni starts. But for me, the best player on that right-hand side is Neto. So I start Neto in the big games on that right-hand side. It's not a slight on Noni. It's just the fact that I feel that Neto offers us more, both that way and that way as a combination. The problem we've still got is that left. Now, when a team sits like they did last night, I don't think there's enough pace. Sancho is not going to do you for pace. When there's a transition in tight areas, he's brilliant. But the problem we've got is that we don't have enough options on the left. That's why Neto, I feel, because he can do that. I mean, I've never seen Noni on the left.
No, honestly.
He's not the starter.
Never plays him out there. I think I might have seen him for the England under-21s get that move over there sometimes, but it probably doesn't suit him, to be honest.
No, so Neto can do both. I think is the fact he can do both, sometimes he's compromised.
Yeah, can be a detriment, I guess.
Yes.
Let's talk about Reece James. Of course, Malo Gusto came on for Reece during the game. What did you make of Reece James's performance?
I think Reece James is, for me, I'm just happy to see him stay fit, keep contributing, keep, drumming up minutes. I think against Man City, he struggled at times. Maybe he didn't get enough help as well because he was getting doubled up on. I think with Reece James, it's just about building up those minutes. We know he's a top player. We know he's a quality player. I said before, I kind of hope he doesn't get selected for the next England squad. I'm kind of pushing Spence, maybe, or I'm pushing Livramento, I'm pushing Trent, because I just want Reece to just keep clocking up minutes and just keep fitness. We saw what happened with Lavia. I think you talk about presence with Gue and Jackson. This is someone who has a presence. When he's on the pitch, it just makes Chelsea and Chelsea fans feel just a lot more at ease, a lot more, in control.
Yes, he's still trying to manage his way through, came off. Gusto's an able replacement, but I'm just glad that we're not talking about an injury.
Yeah, definitely. It's, always brilliant to see our captain back on the pitch, isn't it? Big talking point in the starting 11 as well was, of course, Jorgensen starting in goal. What did you make of that, Jace?
I felt, and I said in the show last week, that I would take Sanchez out the firing line. I think it's quite a smart move from Maresca because he would have started against Brighton, almost certainly in the FA Cup. That's where he gets his minutes. And he's given him a chance. There's parts of his game still, he's still young, that I think there's a bit of a nervousness towards the end of the game. Gue was down injured, the ball's gone back to him, he's outside his box, doesn't clear it particularly well. He's out of his bottom thinking, where have I seen this before? But we got away with it. He starts against Brighton, so Maresca said to him, right, here's your 2 games. If you don't put a foot wrong against Brighton, I think he starts in the league game the following week. That's how I see this. I thought he'd done okay. I mean, they didn't really, in terms of shots, there wasn't a great deal for him to do from memory. I'm not so sure he could do much about the goal. I thought he'd done okay. It wasn't one of those where he's having to come for lots of crosses, lots of shots. But I think he'll be happy with his performance. Disappointing again because we never keep clean sheets. But
I think
the way we are.
I heard the manager say obviously that he's kind of rested Sanchez, and that for me is a red flag because that means now that
you don't rest goalkeepers.
Yeah, you don't rest
unless it's Conference League, League Cup, FA Cup. That's when you rotate.
Yeah,
you don't rotate a goalkeeper.
Goalkeepers don't need rest, especially when the last game wasn't since last Saturday. There's been more than a week's rest for the keeper, so it tells me that he just maybe wanted to see Jorgensen, but I don't think he necessarily really wants to make him first choice just yet. After that performance, I still don't see that. Look, I don't think either of the keepers are necessarily the standard that I'm looking for in terms of, going to put a serious assault on a Premier League next season and really push for a challenge. But I think I'd like to see Jorgensen follow up with 2-3 games on the spin just to see if he improves because he hasn't had any momentum to build his own confidence, to build any consistency. He only comes in on these flashes of a game. He just comes in and he's back out. He doesn't get a consecutive run. So I'd like to see if he can get 3, 4, 5 games on the spin, maybe the opinion would change and it might be, okay, maybe this is a player that could... We
expect to start against Brighton FA Cup.
Yeah, hopefully.
We expect that. So if things go to plan and things go well, we then have to say, well, and then they start brightening the league.
Yeah.
That's how I'm looking
100%.
at this.
Yeah.
It was a shame we were out the Carabao Cup so early, wasn't it? Because that would have been more game time for him as well.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. We'll keep an eye on it. Something else that kind of keeps happening at the back are mistakes.
Yeah.
We did see Colwill make a little error against West Ham. Matisse, what did you make of that? And how do we stop making these mistakes?
Well, I saw a statistic that we are joint third for most errors leading to goal in the Premier League with 10. And everybody around us, no surprise, they are near the bottom end of the league. I think it's a thing with Colwill where, specifically on him in this moment, he's too weak. He's far too weak. You know, he's looking to the linesman, he's arguing with the officials. You just have to take accountability. In that moment, you were far too weak. You're a centre-back. Centre-backs have got to be strong. They've got to be able to ride a challenge. And he's just been brushed off the ball. And it wasn't the first loose pass that he made. There was others as well. But that loose pass there, it's criminal because it's allowed a 1v1 in a situation where I don't think West Ham were making loads of big, clear-cut chances in that game. I think we could have potentially kept a clean sheet. But we do keep making these errors. And that's where I do feel for Maresca. When people talk about Maresca, yes, systematically, he can make the changes. Yes, proactive off the bench, can he make the changes? The goalkeeping, cool. But then when you get these errors consecutively, we're talking about Man City, Sanchez coming out, that's not a goal. You know, that's Haaland in a channel. He's got to pick a pass. We go from there. Defend in a group. These errors that keep happening, they're skewing the performances or the results a little bit out of our favour. So if we could cut them out, I think, you know, the way we look at things might be slightly different. It's a shame, but it is repetitive and it is... for me, what I take from it is that there's no real leader in that back line. There's nobody to kind of put an arm around others and calm them down and keep them composed. And I think errors lead to errors. So once a defender or a goalkeeper knows that there's errors in front of them or behind them, then everybody's just more nervous and then it just spirals out of control.
I've just written down here, Desai, Leboeuf, Terry Silva.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, who is that player that looks...
Even Thiago Silva.
Feels a little bit like this, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, who is that player?
Is it lack of experience, though, James?
There is, although you've got to learn quickly in the Premier League. You know, you can't... And he's absolutely right, Matisse. I felt that the Cole does need to be a little bit more physical, impose himself a little bit more. He's still young. This is a very... And we keep saying this, but the truth is, the reality, it's a truism. We are a young, inexperienced team. But you've got to learn quickly in this league because you get punished. How brutal was that? One misplaced part, OK, the couple of... But into Bowen, 2 seconds later, back in the net. That's what this league will do to you. And you're right, he was moaning at the referee, linesman looking for soft free kicks. It wasn't. Simply wasn't. No. And he got out-muscled, and that's something that... But then you look across the back line. Who's the one that's brating? Who's that player? This can't happen again. This. We keep making these little errors, and we're punished in the most brutal of ways.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Christensen. I kind of compare him to him when he was at the club. He's young, 21-year-old, talented, clearly good on the ball, very, technically gifted player. But he was also a bit fragile. He was a bit weak. He could be brushed off the ball. He could make an error. I remember Barcelona actually in the Champions League. He just passed it across goal, and that's a massive error. Yeah. So these players, for a centre-back, it's very difficult to peak in your early 20s. You only maybe get legends like Terry that will do that, and some of the golden generation in this country. But a lot of the time, it is your mid-20s, and we saw it with Rudiger, loads of errors. But then as he got older, he started to cut them out. He becomes a great centre-back, wins the Champions League, goes to Real Madrid.
And Silva alongside him as well.
Yeah, Silva. You've got to put people around these guys. And I just think, I'd love to think that our recruitment would kind of reflect that in the summer, that we'd realise that with all the young talent that we have, they need guidance, they need top players around them.
There's no evidence to suggest that that's going to be the case.
Yeah.
You can make a case for that all through the pitch. Yeah. Who's that experienced player in the middle of the park? Cacedo's, Enzo, and they've racked up enough appearances and caps, but who is that Lampard in there?
Yeah, but even if you talk about teams like Brighton, who are developing players, and that's a club that we've spoken about in terms of the model, but obviously at a grander scale, they still have Lewis Dunks, lower level, but they've leaders and players that will help them. So
Danny Welbeck's another great example of that. I'm not saying we go and sign Danny Welbeck, but the truth is...
He just likes to score against us, though.
Yeah, he does. But that we keep having this conversation. I'd love to sit here one day and say that we are slowly but surely coming out of that inexperienced backline type of tag.
Do you think maybe in 2 or 3 years' time we'll be looking at a Levi Colwill and going, what a leader?
Well, you'd like to think so, because he's already an international. There are a lot of teams interested in him, Liverpool by all accounts, a couple of teams abroad. He went on his loan spell to Brighton, done very well, done okay, comes back. He could be a future Chelsea captain, but he's got to start showing it. And I remember John Terry when he came in. John Terry looked to captain pretty much from day one. You know, you looked at him and you felt this boy has got some personality. I'm not so sure that personality, we've seen too much of it. A lot of our players at the moment, to be honest with you.
Can you still grow into that role without having someone next to you?
Well, it might have to happen. It might be a moment, a game, there might be something that changes. You know, we're talking numbers here, appearances. In the Premier League, there's not a lot of appearances there for him. But there will come a point where he racks up 100, 150, 200 appearances. By that time, you then should be looking at someone that has a personality, that wears that armband, that's capable, even if he's not wearing the armband, of being a leader in and around that position. Because there will be a moment where he is the elder statesman.
Yeah.
And there might be a young player coming through the academy where he's the one that everyone's looking up to. He's not quite there yet.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to seeing how he does develop.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, someone who has been a very consistently good player for us is Mathis Caicedo. I'm going to read his stats out against West Ham because we can all celebrate these. So his game by numbers, 59 out of 60 passes completed, 10 final third entries, 7 duels won, 5 tackles, 3 accurate long balls, 1 possession twice, and 1 chance created, 1 block, and 0 dribbled past him.
This is what he does. This is what he does. Like, it's becoming normal at this point that he, in this midfield, keeps things ticking and runs the team. He's the engine, he's the life of the team. He's irreplaceable currently in this squad. And I think, as great as these statistics are, I hope we manage him, I hope we look after him, I hope we take him out and rest him when we need to so we can prolong his games this season and he doesn't, gas out, because he does get through a lot of work. He does cover a lot of ground. And it must be difficult because we are a bit open at times and we aren't the most, airtight teams. So he's fantastic, honestly. I think he's our player of the season so far. I thought obviously Palmer maybe could have had a run in for that, but I think there's been a bit of a drop-off over the winter period, even with some of the goals still going in. Obviously he got a deflected one to win this game. I think Caicedo for me has just been the real linchpin.
It worries me that we are so reliant because it feels a little bit like when I used to watch N'Golo and Kante play. Yeah. You expect him to put the performances in, and he kind of goes under the radar because he's just doing what N'Golo did. He's a little bit like that, Caicedo, at the moment. He does his job and he does it so well that I don't know whether we appreciate him quite enough. Let me tell you, when he comes out that team, and fingers crossed he doesn't get injured. Yeah. Boy, will we miss that player. And he is the biggest, most important player for us. I think we can place Cole Palmer. We got Nkunku that can go in there. We did have Felix that we never saw. But who is going to play in there? The only person I can think of is Reece. He's the only one I can put into that position.
Could you get him to cover the ground without getting injured?
Well, there's your problem. Yeah. But then Gusto might have to go in there as inverted. But yeah, he's, without question, he's been Chelsea's best player this season.
Yeah, well, he's been all over the pitch, hasn't he? And like we say, consistently brilliant.
He can play right back as well. He solves problems, but Matisse is right. We're so heavily reliant on him at the moment that there's no one that can do the same job as him. No one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so would you then, off the back of that, be surprised when we've let midfielders go?
Well, the problem is Caicedo's not going to get in there. Lavia's key to this conversation, because if there is someone that can do a similar type of job, it's going to be Lavia, but Lavia can't stay fit. So who do we have come in that middle of the park? So we've got Enzo, we've got Caicedo, we've got Lavia that can't stay fit. Who else is there?
Well, for me,
there is no one else that jumps off the page.
No, I think if you wanted to not ruin the relationship with Strasbourg and you didn't want to recall Santos because obviously they're pushing for maybe European place, etc., then you got to just look at that Leslie Okachuku performance at Old Trafford, even in the defeat for Southampton, the way that he kind of bullied Kobe Mainoo at times, the fact that he can cover ground, he's young. Not on Caicedo's level in terms of obviously what we've seen this season, but he's just starting to get minutes. He was kind of left out of the team under Russell Martin. He's only really just started to get the minutes under the new manager. But I think recalling him in this window, especially when Southampton are relegated anyway, I think that would have been a smart move just to give Caicedo a little bit of backup. Okachuku brings a bit of a physical presence. He's a tall lad who help in the aerial duels. I'm very shocked that we haven't done that at least. If you didn't want to bring Santos back, at least get Okachuku back. That surprises me because I think that's some good recruitment. I think that's a good bit of scouting. He was doing really well in France before we brought him in. He probably maybe even could be a box-to-box player as well. But I think you could look at him and say, right, that's a profile that we lack. That could give us a little bit of security, even in the last 15, 20 minutes when we're trying to see out wins, bring him on. But we haven't brought him back. And I hope we don't pay for that, because I don't think we've had a great window. I don't think we've done much to improve this team. You could actually make a case that we've slightly we've slightly had the team drop off a little bit with Felix leaving. But obviously he wasn't really favoured by the manager as well. There's still no striker. It's a weird window.
Yeah. I was going to say, Matisse, you've just said you don't rate our business in the January transfer window. Is that something you agree with, Jace?
I'd like to have seen an addition up top, but then we saw Guillou come off the bench last night, which gives us a little bit of an option. I still think this team, Chelsea Football Club, if we are going to challenge next season, what do I mean by challenge? Are we right there to challenge the top? No, but I mean, in and around top 4 is an absolute must. This season, we got a chance. I'm not totally convinced by us. We still need, for my money, need a goalkeeper, centre-half, centre midfielder, a striker, right down the spine of the team. There's still recruitment to be done. That left-hand side still worries me a little bit, certainly with what's happened with Mudryk. We don't know if and when he's ever going to return in a Chelsea shirt. So there are still holes in this squad. Doing things in January isn't necessarily the right time to, even though we have done big business. Mudryk, I mentioned there, Enzo. There's been a number of signings under the new ownership. I'd like to have seen at least an addition in the middle of the park. If we're not going to bring players back, what have we got in there? And we let some players go. So the squad is slightly weaker, yet Maresca wants to play with a smaller squad. So maybe there's some joined up thinking from upstairs and the manager. I don't want a huge bloated squad, but I still think next summer's window, there'll be players that come in that we've already bought. We spoke on that right-hand side of Estevez.
Esteval, yeah, from Palmeiras,
and then don't be surprised if some players that started last night move on as well.
So someone that we have brought in is 19-year-old midfielder Mathis Amougou. He's the only player that we brought in before transfer deadline day.
Yeah.
The plan is that he is going to come and train for 3 months with Chelsea to develop with the top players and then go to Strasbourg. What do you make of that? Do you think that approach is too business-like? What do you feel?
It is business. It's definitely not something that enhances our chances of finishing in the Champions League this season. It doesn't enhance our chances of winning the FA Cup. It doesn't enhance our chances of meeting the objectives I feel like we have to meet. I think it's a deal that didn't need to be done. Purely because when I'm looking at, and this is surface level, he's still young, I'm sure he can obviously develop into something, but he's played 17 games in Ligue 1. It's less than 10 full 90 appearances. He's not a goal-scoring midfielder, which is fine. He might chip in with the odd tackle and interception, but is he someone that can come in for CAICEDO if he was to get injured? Is he someone that could start Premier League games and ready to play if Enzo got injured? Lavia's not back till mid-March. I don't think the answers to any of those questions are yes. I think when Chelsea have already got Andre Santos on their books, have already got Okachukwu on their books, have got Dyer in the academy who's doing really well, Raksaki played Conference League games, looks good, looks talented. I just don't think that was the position to bring in another young developing midfielder. He could go on to Strasbourg next season on loan, do really well, and Chelsea can make a profit. But as a fan, I'm not really interested in that. I'm interested in, are we trying to win trophies? Are we trying to, pride of London, put our flag in the sand? Are we trying to push on? I think we've done so much good business in midfield. That was the last place I think resources need to be put into. There's so many other positions. You spoke about the spine. That needs sorting out. So if we were going to do anything, I would have liked to have seen us do something that makes us stronger. He'll probably play Conference League games, and we maybe need that because Casadet's gone, and we only have Shrewsbury Hall. But apart from that, it's not something I'm excited about, to be honest, because I've just seen so many young players. We had Washington come in, and then he's back on loan to Santos now, exactly where he was when we signed him. It just feels a bit too much for me. Too many players in and out. It's a bit annoying at times, personally.
Do you feel like it's more like trading rather than actually coming and helping the team out?
It's difficult to know because our scouting network is vast. And there may well be, football is a business. Whether we like it or not, football is a business. And we have seen players come in, we've seen players be sold, Conor Gallagher, Felix come in for him, and now he's gone back out on loan. It's the way that it is done now in the modern football era. It is a multi-billion-pound industry. And even though, what did we pay for him?
Well, I think it was like 14 million euros,
14
something
million
like
pounds.
that, yeah.
It's not
20
chicken
million euros.
feed. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not a lot of money. You know, so who knows what that boy's going to be. The scout, you've got to trust the scouts, Leonie. I think that's the situation. You've got to just trust the scouts. Who knows? We may well be talking about him in 2 years' time as a midfielder playing alongside CAICEDO.
Can we trust him, though? That's my question. When you see what happened in the summer, you've got Renato Vega who comes in, he's now on loan in Juventus. You've got Felix who comes in, who's now on loan in AC Milan. You've got Dewsbury Hall comes in, he was available this window, no one came in for him. You know, there's so many players that we keep signing that keep being made redundant almost 6 months later. It's quite dejecting, and I don't have that confidence in them at this point from a sporting director standpoint that they're actually making enough correct decisions with the money that they've spent. They've got some signings right, but they've got a lot of signings wrong. And at some point, the money's going to dry up because if Chelsea don't qualify for the Champions League and they don't get that front of shirt sponsor, and they don't get these commercial deals over the line, the CEO was sacked over the summer, they had to replace him, then we're talking about addressing a spine we might not have money to address with the signings that we need to make to address it. And then we talk about the wage structure, and of course that limits us a little bit, but I actually like it. I think it incentivizes players to do well, makes sure that we don't overpay for players that are not performing. But I think Chelsea have just got to focus on the first team, first 11. Make sure that you're competitive, that you're right up there, and you're maximising your revenue from a competition standpoint before you start trying to maximise it on a profit standpoint with players.
Yeah. Is that something that worries you as well, Jace?
I'm like Matisse. I want the first team to be sorted out. Clearly, there's players that we're not the only team that bring in players from abroad and send them out on loan. That's the multi-club
model, yeah.
Yeah, that's something that's been done all over the world. Manchester City, Red Bull, whatever you want to call it. I'm interested in the first team, and I look at that and the money that we've spent. There is still, for me, holes in this squad. Who is the backup to CAICEDO? Who is that player? We spent a huge amount of money. Who is the backup to Jackson? All right, Guillau's come in. Is he the finished article? No. Who is going to be on the left-hand side? We've been dealt a bit of a bad hand with the Madrid situation, but who is now a left-back if Cucurella's in? Who is that? Because Vega could play out there. Ben Chilwell's, gone. Who is that left? So I still think this squad, the matchday squad of 20-plus players, for me, it still needs work on, whether it be on the training ground, some of the players that we brought in, or whether it be in the business market. And I still think there's stuff work to be done. Yeah. There have been some signings, as Matisse said, that have worked, no question. Big fan of Gusto, big fan of CAICEDO, big fan of Palmer, obviously. And there's one or two others that haven't quite lived up. And you get some you get right, some you don't. But to be sending out Felix on loan so soon after he re-signed, when his loan spell came through, he done all right. I don't remember being blown away by him. The problem he's got is that Cole Palmer plays in that 10. Problem, and Kunku's got, Cole Palmer plays there. The only way we can fit him in is you put Palmer out on the right-hand side. Well, that doesn't quite solve the problem either, because then you're compromising. So, yeah, the squad still needs work.
Yeah. Looking at the João Felix situation, Matisse, do you feel he's been treated badly by the club?
I think he has to look to his agent in George Mendes. I think he's the consistent. You've made a lot of bad moves in your career. You've put yourself in a lot of positions. And this is not really on João Felix, it's more on his agent. You're in charge of your client, and you've gone to a lot of clubs where you're not starting, you're not getting regular game time. If anything, you've got to take a bit of humble pie and you've got to drop a level maybe to a club in the middle of the table in a league, a smaller club, but you can be the fulcrum, you can be the epicenter, you can be the main man, you can get the keys. And then let's see, you get the regular game time, get your confidence up and push on. He keeps making these moves to these big clubs that don't really have him in their plans. And I can't really... Listen, obviously, from Chelsea's standpoint, it's not good. Because why have you got a player coming in, £42 million, 7-year contract, 6 months later, redundant, now on a loan. Loan fees are just going to be collected year after year. If you're going out on loan at this age, you're clearly not part of the manager's plans. I expect you to go out on loan when you come back afterwards.
Would he not have been told, Jace, that he was in Chelsea's plans?
Every player comes in,
it's part of the plan.
It's true. Look, you do the maths. Only 11 can start, and there's only so many spaces on the bench. The thing with Felix, I found before, he's a luxury player. He's one of those that easier to catch the eye, but at the end of the 90 minutes, you go, what did he really do? How much influence did he really have? And I, like I said, I wasn't blown away by the signing when he came back. I'm not convinced that the Premier League suits him. I think his style of play, I think that he can get brushed off the ball too easily. The physicality, in particular in the middle of the park, especially when teams play that low block, it's very difficult for him to find the space he wants to operate in. He needs space, but he also wants to play in his position. And sorry, repeat myself, but you're not getting ahead of Cole Palmer. And that's where he probably needs to show, or certainly needs to be given the chance. That's where he wants to play. Having said that, there were moments this season. He has had opportunities. He has played in the Conference League, has played in the League Cup when Palmer has been rested. And again, did he take his chance? Not totally convinced he did.
Yeah, it's interesting. Let's talk about someone that you have actually discussed on many levels, Jace. Christopher Nkunku. You have mentioned before that he's not quite fit into the team. Are you surprised that he's still a Chelsea player at the moment?
Well, if Felix goes, you can't get rid of both of them, it feels, because if Palmer does tweak a hamstring, I expect Nkunku to start against Brighton on Saturday evening. So you still need players, still need a squad. I felt that I couldn't see both of them leaving because then you're leaving yourself really spare. Again, we saw what happened. He came off the bench. He didn't go down the middle. Guiu got that job. He went out onto the left-hand side. It was a bit strange, actually, because Cucurella, it was playing inverted. Sancho was out that far wide, but they seemed to swap roles. Cucurella was then high and wide, attacking, overlapping fullback. And then Nkunku was playing in that kind of mid-space, if you like, where Cucurella was operating first half. It's not really his natural position again. I thought we'd done OK. He was part of us getting back into the game. So when he left that field, he would have felt that he had a big say, or certainly a big hand in us getting those 3 points.
I think he has to play in that role, primarily because I don't think Chelsea are going to play through Nkunku. I don't think his confidence levels, I don't think his form is in a place where we can play him as the sole 10 and say we're going to play through him. But he's got to be in between the midfield and defence and the midfield and the attack and trying to link it up and trying to spark some life and bring a bit of energy and intensity to the team. I think with him, I'm surprised because Bayern Munich agreed personal terms. There could have been a fee. There could have been some sort of transfer fee sorted for a permanent exit. And if anything, he's the player that's maybe more disillusioned over the last few weeks and months, maybe more heading towards the exit door. You get your money back on him. It's been 2 years, 2 full seasons. I think he had an injury a lot last season. This season, he's not really played in his rightful position. I think he's still a really good player, but it's not really been seen at Chelsea for whatever reason. And he's also aging, of course. I think he's 27, so the resale value. Yeah, in this modern football, market value, resale value, all this kind of stuff. I think with Nkunku, he's about to go into his prime. He needs to be settled, he needs to be playing week in, week out. He wants to get into the France World Cup squad. I just thought that was the exit that was going to happen. I think Felix, I think he would have wanted to be here a bit more. Maybe you would have kept him. You haven't got a fee for him. He's out on loan. It's only a little loan fee. I just thought it would have been the other way around. So I'm a little bit surprised it's gone that way, especially because Felix just joined. But hey, you can't predict what happens at Chelsea. So
very true.
The thing is, Nkunku's too good to be sitting on the bench.
Well, I was going to say, Maresca did come out and say he feels that maybe he's treated Nkunku a bit unfairly. He deserves more. So how do you feel about that quote and the manager coming out and saying that?
Well, I think we can all feel on a human level, on a professional level, that he hasn't been given the chance that he really wants. But I'll go back to it. The reality is, Cole Palmer has been one of the standout players in the Premier League. And then you are compromising. And you're right. I mean, look, he came off the bench against Bournemouth, scored the equaliser, and you wonder whether that was going to be the moment to kick him on. I go back to when we played away in Newcastle in the League Cup. There was a number of players that were given their opportunity, didn't take it. So he has had 1 or 2 chances. It's so difficult, though, when you're at a club like Chelsea, because those opportunities are fleeting. And if they come and go quickly and you don't impress, all of a sudden 3-4 games can pass by and you haven't got any minutes under your belt. It'd be interesting to see what happens again. You're using Brighton. It's an FA Cup game away from home against a Premier League side. We saw that against Newcastle in the League Cup. We come up short. We were terrible that day. Didn't deserve to go through. Let's hope that those players that are given a chance, and he will almost certainly be one of those. Show us what you got. Come on, give us
performance.
Give us the performance that we know's inside there.
Yeah. We want to see more balloons.
Absolutely.
That's what I'll say.
It's been a while, actually. Yeah,
it's been a while. Looking at the Premier League table now, we are in 4th. Why are we off it?
Because I can't
it feels
believe
weird,
we're
doesn't
fourth.
it? Yeah.
Honestly, it's astonishing.
It's Man City obviously dropping points.
Yeah.
Newcastle losing to Fulham.
Villa,
But this is the top four. This is why if we just do our job and we just focus on ourselves, I don't really like looking at other results for top four. If you're going for a title, I get it. You need one defeat in 10. You're really clinging on to anything the other team gives you. In top four, you don't have to look at other teams, honestly. If you just take care of your own business and you just remain a level of consistency and
But we all look though, Matisse, don't we?
yeah, we have to. But we shouldn't have to. That's the thing. We shouldn't have to. If we could just maintain a good level, we would make top four. But that's the thing. We've got to do that. So
I mean, I know you said you don't really look at other teams around you, Matisse, but you're looking at your Newcastle's, Bournemouth, Villa. I mean, what threat do they pose to us right now?
Well, of all those sides you mentioned, we're the most inconsistent. But we're fourth.
Yeah.
And that's because we gave ourselves a really good... I mean, overachieved, we said this before, overachieved going into December, underachieved throughout that period, and somehow now it looks like we're levelling out. We're fourth because we've got the points to be there. But you look at like Bournemouth, my God, they're as inconsistent as anyone right now. Okay, they got beat by Liverpool. That's, Liverpool, the best side in the country.
Let them off.
Well, yeah.
Newcastle, their home form, terrible. I mean, you don't know what Newcastle you're going to get. Villa, Champions League, stuttered again away at Wolves. Forest look like they're going to continue to be there or thereabouts. They've got no European football. They can concentrate on weekend to weekend. And Manchester City, I mean, my gosh, will the real Man City please stand up?
I mean, do they still worry you given that result of the weekend?
I think you've got to consider them still a threat, yeah. I mean, they've got Pepper's manager, they've got Haaland in there.
Yeah.
You
made another signing as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're going to... It might go down to 5 sides now in getting to Europe. So I think we have to think what was used to be called the top 4. We might sneak in 5th. Right now, I'm not convinced we're good enough for top 4. I still need to see more of a Chelsea side that we saw going into December. Yeah. So there's been so far. There's been the mid-third. There's been the beginning third. What does the final third of this season look like for us?
Yeah.
Do you think Nottingham Forest will still be up there, Matisse?
It's tough to take them out because in both boxes, they're fantastic. Whether it's Chris Wood on the end of the crosses, whether it's the way they defend, how much they take pride in their defending, they almost love defending. And they're pragmatic and they're a bit of a shape to the system because they will be direct and they will be defensive and do up a low block if they have to. So they haven't got this ego or they haven't got the expectation, rather, from their fan base and from their club that they have to be on the front foot. And I think a lot of teams, they get caught out at times because they have an expectation to be on the front foot and they get exposed. Whereas Forest, if they want to keep it airtight and be defensive, they're allowed to do that because they're vastly overachieving. So I think they definitely could be up there at the end of the season. I think top 5 finish for them is a real target. They're 6 points clear of Newcastle in 6th. Newcastle haven't got any Champions League football, so they just got to go week to week, and we know how much energy they put into their games and the amount of physicality they put into their games. Isak's in incredible form. We've obviously got the 2 fullbacks from Cobham that are doing really well. And then you've got City, who have just made a sign on deadline day. Gonzalez has come in midfield. Let's see what he does. I think he's massive, because that midfield is their weakest part of the pitch. You look at Kovacic and Bernardo and the lack of legs and how bad they are in transition. Yeah, if he comes in and he just, hits the ground running, that's a massive improvement to that team. And then you've got Mamouche and Haaland. So it's going to go down to the wire. I think it's 6 going into well, it's 4 teams going into 3 spots. I don't think Bournemouth are going to be there at the end. I don't think Villa with the Champions League are necessarily, they shouldn't be there at the end. But I think, yeah, the teams that are there, the 4 teams right now in 3 spots, that's what we're looking at, I think.
Just going back to Forest, it's very simple how he plays, Nuno. It's brilliant. He's got a system and he has got pace in wide areas, and they play down with the centre forward, like a proper old school number 9. He stays between the edge of the 6-yard, the penalty spot. He doesn't move. Alanga, Kalamazoo, I know he didn't play, but in Morello and Milinkovic at the back, those 2 are as good as centre halves as you'll find in the league, and they all over the pitch. I mean, their own as well, who's been magnificent at right back. I think they're there for top 4. I think that there's going to be at least 1, maybe 2 space if it goes down to 5.
Yeah.
Well, back to Chelsea. We were a goal down against West Ham, and we did come back. And I said earlier, that hasn't always played out this season. So the fact that we have come back in a game to win, how does that fare with the upcoming fixtures? Of course, we've got Brighton twice, Southampton, Leicester, obviously Villa in between as well. So how does that fare? How much confidence will we get from that comeback?
Every victory, you should be able to get something positive out of it. We concede again. I spoke to Chelsea fans. I said, we will concede. We're going to have to score 2 goals to win this game. And it's we can't keep clean sheets. That's something that needs to improve. If we are going to get in this top 4, one goal should be enough to win you a game. And when was the last time we won 1-0 in the league?
Bournemouth away, maybe. The winner from Nkuku.
Yeah, but that's it, right?
I think so, yeah.
But that's
from what I can remember.
We don't. And by the way, we had a penalty save on that day.
Yeah,
Sanchez,
Sanchez was incredible that day.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So that should defensively we need to be better. But any victory, come back from 1-0 down in the Premier League and win points doesn't often happen. The first goal is normally absolutely vital to where the points go. So yes, look, we come back in a London derby. But we got some big games coming, and winnable games, Leonie.
Yes.
These are winnable games we've got coming up. I know Villa away is going to be tough, Brighton away, but come on, we've won there before.
Yeah.
I was going to say, we played Brighton at home, one of my favourite games of the season. Villa at home, another one of my favourite games of the season.
Yeah.
How things have now shifted slightly.
Yeah.
But I'll ask you the same question, Matisse. Just having that comeback against West Ham, how do you think that's going to play its part?
They just got to go on a bit of a run. I think they've got to see this as an opportunity to go on a bit of momentum now. I think 10 points out of the next 12 is what I'm looking for. Next 4 Premier League games. It's a different Villa now because obviously you've got Rashford coming into that team. So that's a slightly different dynamic in the attack. He might have a chip on his shoulder, so you've got to look out for these things. But listen, if we play to our maximum and we've got our players fit, which is the most important thing, then we can win these games. 100% we can win these games. We're ahead of all these teams. But these teams they have threats, they have things that they can pose. And I think those games at home to Southampton and Leicester, they're non-negotiable. You have to win those games. If you drop any points against those 2 teams who are potentially going to be relegated, then you are really not looking good for top 4 because the fixtures after those, we haven't played Arsenal again, we haven't played Liverpool again, Forest again, Newcastle again, Tottenham again, United. So we got our own rough spell coming up, but thankfully other teams around us have got tough fixtures coming up as well. So it could be an opportunity to build a bit of a bridge really between the other teams if we can get on a run.
Yeah. Well, I've got a really important question to ask you both now. Take your time in answering. If Enzo Fernandez throws his shorts at you at the end of a game, do you sniff them?
No. Nope.
Anyone threw the shorts at me, I'm not anything like that, Leonie.
So after the West Ham game,
it's the last thing you do.
we saw a Chelsea fan. Yeah. He caught the shorts.
Yeah.
The first thing he does is he sniffs them.
Right.
I'm in his camp. I may take a little sniff. I can't lie.
Wow.
But
that's quite a revelation.
I don't know what to say, Leonie.
Well, if you were the short sniffer, then please do get in touch. We'd love to meet you and discuss your thoughts
sniffer.
and feelings.
What was the intention there, honestly? What did he expect to smell?
I'm hoping
nothing but
he's
sweat.
done it as a gag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse the
Knew the camera was on
Yeah,
him.
I'm hoping it was that.
Well, please do enlighten us if you are watching. OK, that is it for another episode of Inside Chelsea. We'll be back next Tuesday. As always, if you want to get involved, post your comments below and we'll do our best to answer them. Thank you very much for your company and thanks to Jason and Matisse. We will see you next time. Guys, we won. All together now.
Up the Chelsea.